Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 2022 SDF Production Grant Info Session. My name is Chris Everett, and I am the Program Manager at the Southern Documentary Fund. The Southern Documentary Fund is a nonprofit that cultivates documentary media made in or about the American South. We believe that media has the power to change lives, and we provide makers with resources to champion Southern storytelling, serving as a leading advocate, providing filmmakers and artists with professional support, filmmaking grants, and fiscal sponsorship. Again, welcome to our production grant info session. And today is going to be pretty cool. Just going to walk you guys through the application process. The Documentary Core app, which we've been using for years, and other top documentary organizations around the country have been using the same thing. They've actually kind of updated it a little bit. So we'll go through those updates and some of those minor changes to the application today as well. If you go to our website, we have some great key resource tools for you. If you go to our website, under the filmmaking grants, we have several reference documents. So we have an actual application checklist for the new application on there. We have a sample budget. We also have a sample application as well. And we also have the roundtable budgeting workshop, a recorded one, where if you're struggling with your budget, you can go on there and check out that video recording. And it's a great session. I've been actually using it myself, for some of my budget needs and stuff like that. So definitely check out that resource page on the filmmaking grant page on our website. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. We'll go ahead and get started here. Let's do that, right. Right. So this is pretty much where you're gonna get started with the grant. You go to our website, you go under programs, filmmaking grants, and it'll take you right here. And our grant is open right now. The grant closes July 18th. So definitely after today's sessions, get your applications in. I know how it will sneak up on you. I've actually missed some deadlines over the past year or so myself. So definitely get those applications in as soon as possible. So this is what I was telling you guys about just a few minutes ago. We have some reference documents right here. If you want to, use those to kind of see where you're at. We have a sample budget. We have a budgeting workshop recording right here to check out to help you with your budget. We also have a sample application as well. So whenever you're ready to apply, just hit apply. And then it takes you to this page. And this is pretty much our application. And again, I just got to give a shout out to the MacArthur Foundation. This grant is made possible by them and their generous support to the Southern Documentary Fund. And this year, we are actually awarding 5 film projects, $10,000 each, $10,000 for 5 projects this year. The type of films that we fund, this program is for Southern makers, and we fund nonfiction documentaries, and that includes shorts, features, docuseries, and experimental film projects. Projects must be in production, meaning that this isn't for research or development, not for post-production, not for distribution or engagement or impact funding. Those projects are not eligible to apply. This is strictly for documentary projects that are in production. Also, project directors, you should reside or have deep roots in one of the following 12 states that we represent, which is Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. You must have a US Social Security number or a US federal tax ID number. You must be at least 18 years of age or older, and also not enrolled in school, film school, or seeking funds for a student film project. Now, there are certain special circumstances regarding eligibility a lot of times, If we don't answer those today, please feel free to reach out to me at my email, chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org. I'll put that in the chat box in a few. But again, if you live in the South or if you have deep roots in the South, say if you live in New York or Chicago or LA currently at the moment, but you grew up in North Carolina or Florida, one of these Southern, 12 states, you are eligible to apply for this grant. And if you feel like you still are kind of unsure about it, feel free to reach out to me or save your question, in the chat, and we'll try to answer that to the best of our ability today. Ineligible projects. The following projects are ineligible for funding and will not be considered. The applicant and project do not meet the above listed eligibility, the listed requirements. Non-documentary projects. I actually had someone one time reach out to me. They actually had a narrative film. It was a dramatic narrative. And I said, nah, we just do documentaries. So this is strictly for docs. You have to submit your project before the deadline. And also, if you've already received a production grant from us, you can't reapply again. Say if you got a grant with us last year or a year before last, and it was production based, you're not eligible for this grant this go around. So also, today is our, like I said, today is our info session. And if you still, having some concerns or questions about your application, we have another one coming up Tuesday, July 12th at 4 p.m. So if you want to register again, feel free to do that, because we'll be doing this another go around Tuesday, July 12th at 4 p.m. just in case you still have any other questions or, need assistance or anything about the application. You can definitely join us on that day as well. But before we go any further, let me see if we got any questions so far. Let's see here. Okay, Justin, I'm going to answer your question before I go again. What do you mean by deep roots? Deep roots, like grew up there? Yes. If you grew up in one of these 12 Southern states, you have ties there, things like that. You grew up there, you stayed there for a nice length of time. Yes, you're eligible. But Justin, if you have any other questions or anything, if you feel like, you need to talk to me directly, I'm going to put my email here in the chat box, and you can just hit me up directly and I can give you a phone call. Right. Cool. So as you begin your application, you have your project title, put the title right here. You have the project type, goes back to the 4 types that we're funding: documentary feature, documentary short, docu-series, and experimental. So you just select which category that your project fits. Also, here at SDF, we love to give first-time and emerging filmmakers, a shot. We just don't fund experienced filmmakers. We also love to give, newer filmmakers an opportunity as well. So wherever you're at in your stage, you put that here, whether you're a first-time filmmaker, you're emerging, or you're experienced. So definitely whatever, classification you fit, put it here. Your contact info, we need to be able to contact you. So if you got the grant, we need to be able to reach out to you. So you put your name, first, last name, phone number, email, mailing address, and also have a secondary contact info person as well, just in case we can't reach you, or say if you're just busy shooting or something like that, and we need to get up with you, have a secondary contact as well, so we can reach out in regards to your project. And then after that, we have a checklist. Do you meet the below criteria? 18 years of age or older, have a social security number or US federal tax ID, a resident of one of those Southern states. And also, if you're not a current resident of a Southern state, but you received approval from myself, about your eligibility. And that goes back to like if you have deep ties, some type of ties to one of these southern states, so just check these, whichever, apply to you. Right. Log line. Right here is a key thing. A log line is just a brief summary of the project. And what helps me write a log line is I look up other log lines, other projects. IMDb is a good place to check out log lines for film projects. And just a brief summary of the project that kind of captures, usually a 1 or 2 liner that really gives a brief summary of what that film's about. And so you put that there. And like I said, it's limited to 50 words. They changed it up a little bit with this new application. You'll see a lot of stuff is still the same, but it's just the length and the limit of the words is a little bit shorter. So this should be a little bit easier on folks. Next is the topic summary. Pretty much this part, and it's limited to 500 words. So it's a little bit shorter. And you really want to explain, the relevancy, culturally, historically, politically, of the film, of your project and the subject matter. Detail the topics, the issues or themes or challenges, what's at stake, with this project and the story that you cover. So you really want to put that right there. Story or concept summary. This is pretty much like a treatment. This really is describing the story overall and giving it to us, as an overview of what your story is about. Who are the main subjects? What are the plot points? What are some of those challenges that these subjects will be facing throughout the story? And again, the word limit is right below the box, 1,000 words. Tell us about the story. What should we anticipate? What are some of those character arcs throughout the story as well? So how are you also going to put this story together? Is it a verite style film? Is it mostly talking heads? How is the story going to be crafted? Artistic approach. This is one of my favorite subjects because this is like showing us your creative vision for this. What are the visuals? What are the audio elements? How will you use sound? Will it have like a jazzy Terrence Blanchard type of score? Or is it like a hip hop RZA type of score to it? Describe those type of elements, the cinematography aspect to it. Are you going to use animation, reenactments, things like that, graphics, all of that. So this is really how the film is going to look on screen, and kind of give us that stylistic approach that you're going to use for your film. Connection and access. This is a very important. You just don't want to do a film and you don't have access to the characters. That defeats the purpose. So this part, limited to 250 words, 250 words. What is your connection and access to the story? How did you find these folks? These characters and these subjects in the film. These participants. And also, why did you want to do this story as well? And why are you the best filmmaker to tell this story? So this is the part that is important. This is a key part right here. You really want to take this part serious because we want to know, why are you the best filmmaker to tell this story? And also, what's your connection to this story? And do you really have good access to the subjects and also just the subject matter in general? These couple right here, hold on, let me see if we got any questions and I'll continue. Hold on one second. See if we got any questions. All right, we got Dr. Gloria. Is a biography a documentary? Yes, it can be a documentary. I'm actually working on a martial arts documentary right now about Grandmaster Vic Moore. It's like a biopic type of documentary. So yeah, as long as it's a documentary, it can be on a person's life, which is pretty much like a biography. So yeah, see here. I'm curious if filmmakers from Texas will be included in the future. For Texas, we don't know right now. We currently don't represent Texas. That could change in the future. If it does, we'll definitely let folks know. Cool. All right, we got some more questions, but I'll go back to that as soon as I finish, so we can get through this. All right, these next couple of sections: accountability, power and positionality, and community care and safety. These are optional, but we'll still go through them. These are optional. These aren't required for our grant at the moment. But accountability, pretty much, describe your relationship with the participants or the community that's being filmed in your documentary. How are you going to be accountable to this? How are you going to be transparent to the participants, the subjects, and the community in general? What are the steps that you're going to take to be accountable and for that feedback and transparency for your film, from pre-production all the way through distribution. So this is another key one right here, but again, it's optional. But you really want to focus on these sections as well eventually, because everyone's application, some people may have it optional, some people may not. So you definitely still want to work on this section, as much as you can for future grant purposes of other organizations and funding opportunity. Power and positionality. Again, this is another optional section. What is your power and positionality in relation to the story and those featured in it? What's your unique lens and perspective? Insights or biases do you bring to the story and subject matter? So you pretty much want to, explain some of those things in this section. And also community care and safety. This is another optional part of the application for us. What are some, things that you're going to be putting in place for safety and security concerns throughout the project, for the subjects that you're going to be doing the documentary on? Think about some of the harm or negative impacts that this film might have on certain communities and film participants. How are you really going to handle that? What is your plan to be in place for that? Creative control. So this is definitely required. I think the rest of these are required throughout the rest of it. Creative control is pretty much who is controlling this project. Is it you? Do you have full ownership? Or are you just the director and the producer has full ownership? Or, are you kind of like a gun for hire type of thing and another entity owns the project? So right here, you want to put creative control, who actually has creative control and ownership of the project. Filmmaker statement. This is a good one right here too. This is really how you sell yourself as a filmmaker in general. With this project, you want to talk about, what does success look like to you, as an artist, as a documentary maker? How are you evolving as a filmmaker as well? And, what are, your goals and everything as well as a maker? Also, what are the barriers and challenges that you currently face as well? And how do you plan on overcoming some of these challenges? So that's really where your filmmaker statement kind of goes right here. Your project stage and timeline, right here, you kind of want to put, and again, on our page, we have like an example application that kind of shows you how to kind of format, some of these sections too. But your project stage and outline is pretty much giving us an overview of where you're at and where you're going towards the future with this project. So, whether it's, you have your research and development stage, it took this long, your pre-production stage took this long. Now this is our production stage and it's going to take this long to complete production. Next stage is post, it takes that long. Then, distribution. So say like you begin production next month. So that's, July 2022, and we're going to be in production to January 2023. So that's how you want to kind of do your project stage and timeline, just to give us an overview of where you're at with your project and where you're going in the future with it as well, from pre-production all the way up to distribution. COVID-19 considerations. Everyone is dealing with this right now in the world of COVID. So right here, you want to tell us how COVID has impacted you, or if it's still impacting your project, and explain how you're going to move forward. What are some of those safety practices that you're going to be practicing? I know even with my own productions, we have certain safety guidelines. We require people to be vaccinated. We require people to wear masks as well. And we require testing also, because, you can't, you always have to look out for yourself and the well-being of your crew, but you also have to look out for your subjects as well that you're filming. And I know with me, I had to take a little time from one of my projects. And I was just telling you about Grandmaster. Grandmaster Moore is almost 80 years old. He has a lot of health issues. And we had to be very careful and cautious before we began production again and put some things in place. So you want to describe that in here, some of these precautions and maybe limitations that you might have because of COVID. You want to put all this in here. Accessibility. This is a new one, and I think it's a key one as well. With your film, how are you going to make it accessible for folks who may be blind or bad vision or disabled or deaf, or any other accessibility issues that folks have going on? How are you going to help with that? Are you going to get captions for your film? Are you going to have transcripts, audio descriptions? Another one is your venues. Are you going to select venues that have some of these accessibility things in place for audience members? So put all that in here, and these are some of the things you got to think about now is, how are you going to make your film accessible when you're doing your screenings, when you're doing community engagement events, even if you're doing streaming or home video, you have to have captions and different things like that. So these are some of the things you want to think about and definitely put it in this section. Audience, another key, because if we don't have an audience, there's no point of making the film. Describe the audience you like your film to reach and why. Who's your audience, and why this audience. Tell us why you chose this audience, and also how do you plan on reaching? How do you plan on reaching? Whether it's through marketing, direct marketing, different type of outreach initiatives, partnering with certain organizations that have a heavy influence on that certain audience. So yeah, tell us how you're going to reach that audience as well. Impact. Talk about the impact that you hope this film will have. Not only on the participants and community, but just broader society as well. So if you have a film that deals with a cultural topic or political topic or social topic, what's the impact that you want to have with this film? Also, if you have an impact strategy or any goals on doing impact, like an impact campaign, put that in here. Talk about, how you might are trying to build some partnerships with organizations or influencers around a certain issue or topic that your film addresses, and how you want to really reach folks with this type of impact campaign. Put all that in here. Distribution and marketing. This is another key one. A lot of times us as filmmakers, we just think about the artistic side of making the film, but we have no idea how to market or distribute the film. It's more to just making it to Sundance and hopefully somebody will buy your film for $5 million. 9 times out of 10, that's not gonna happen, but you can still distribute your film somewhat. So right here, think about that. Think about how you want to really distribute this thing. Everyone, we all do the festivals. So if you have a film festival plan, put that here. say, hey, I'm targeting these certain festivals because majority of these festivals fit to my audience. For example, with a lot of my films focus on the African-American community. So I try to develop my film festival strategy around film festivals that's the audience, like the American Black Film Festival, Pan-African Film Festival, Urban World, Black Star, North Carolina Black Film Festival. So a lot of the festivals that I do outreach for and submit to are film festivals that really focus on Black American stories. So kind of really cater your festival strategy around your audience and also your subject matter as well. Do you have a theatrical plan? Also, do you plan on doing community screenings? Also broadcasting. Broadcasting is key. Whether you're gonna get something with PBS, Free Speech TV, or whoever broadcasts out here that wants to do something with your film, or any broadcaster that you're interested in pursuing, put that on here. And if you're doing DIY distribution, put that on here as well and talk about your plans for that. Next stage, creative personnel. This is another key one. And with this, you want to put, if you're the director, you want to put your bio here, and you don't want to have a whole page bio. Just keep it really to a brief paragraph. Keep it short, keep it short and sweet. So you want to have the director, you want to have the producer, cinematographer, editor. To me, the key ones with key personnel: director, producer, cinematographer, editor, and possibly a composer. Because people want to see how you shoot this thing, how you gonna edit. Really those are the two key components: shooting and editing. So you at least have those key personnel listed on here. Keep them to brief bio. Also, if you have any other consultants as well that are attached to this with some name that you want to put down there. Also executive producers as well. Like I know I'm currently right now applying to a grant, and I'm able to put a couple of celebrities that have came on board to be EPs, executive producers, on my project. So it just makes your proposal stand out, when you can have those extra key personnel folks, if you have them. And then also, you want to show some diversity as well. That's always helps. So regardless of the subject matter, regardless of anything, but if you're doing a project on a certain community, say if you're doing a project on the Latino community, or if you're doing a project on the African-American community, you want to make sure that your crew and key personnel reflect that. So whether you're an African-American director or a Caucasian director, you want to make sure you have a good balance of some representation, race, gender, etc. Financials is another important one. Fundraising strategy. How are you going to raise money for this film? What's your plan for that? It just can't just be that we apply for the grant for SDF and that's it. No, you need more than $10,000 probably to finish a project. So with strategy, you want to kind of list that. List specific grants that you want to go for. So you're like, hey, I got some grants I want to do. It's like 5 grants from such and such. We're thinking about doing crowdfunding as well. We're thinking about getting a fiscal sponsor. Hopefully it's through SDF that we're going to try to raise X amount of dollars for through our fiscal sponsorship program, which we're going to do some fundraising, party, event type things. And we also have, we're going to use our own personal money as well. So, you want to kind of show a balanced strategy that you're doing grants, you're doing possibly crowdfunding, you're doing fundraising parties and events. You might have some investors as well. So you want to just show an overall plan, to just show and make your proposal just look competitive and show that, these folks know what they're doing. Funding to date. In this right here, you want to list it, and they have a listing example below. Say if you got a grant from, like, I would say you got the grant from ITVS already. You would put that, you would list it, you would put the name of that organization, ITVS, say if it was $20,000, you'll put it right beside there and you'll have secured. And then also grants that you've applied to, but you haven't heard anything from yet. So you want to put all that there. So grants that you've applied to, but you haven't heard from yet, you put applied if you haven't heard anything yet. Grants that you've already received, you put secured and the amount as well. Also broadcast licensing. If you're in negotiation already for a certain broadcasting type deal, put that down too as well. And also say if you've done crowdfunding, say, hey, Chris, I did a Seed and Spark campaign last year. We raised 55 grand. You put that down as well. All of that is part of your funding, to date. And also just, looks good as well. And just shows that you are aggressively looking for funds. And that always looks good on your application. The budget. I hate budgets, just like everyone, but you definitely need it. This is where you upload it at it again. You can go back to this page right here and you can see a sample budget where you can actually use the template. We have a template for you guys to use if you don't have your own. And then also go to this right here, this recorded session. Trust me, it's a good session by Darcy McKinnon. Excellent producer. And she gives us a great session on how to put together a budget, especially a budget for a grant application. So definitely do that if you don't have a budget already and you just upload that here. Here are the acceptable file types for that too. Grant impact. If you got this grant from us, if you got the 10,000 from us, how would you spend the money? And also, how would this grant help you move your project forward? You want to put that right here. And again, always look at the limit of the words. You don't have to have a whole page for each section. They did shorten this thing down a little bit. Visual samples. This is always key as well. If you're not a first-time filmmaker and you're emerging or you're established, this is where you put your prior work right here. So you can give us a link, password, whether it's Vimeo, YouTube, Google Drive, or whatever. You can put that right here of any of your previous documentary works, or if you've done narrative before, that doesn't count against you. Say like this is your first documentary and you've just done narrative in the years past, you can put that here too. Also, current sample. Since this is a production grant, we really want to see, if you have it, a sample of your current sample of the certain project that you're applying for. At least 5 minutes. You have to at least give us 5 minutes so we can really see a good scene at least. So 5 to 10 minutes, at least give us 5 minutes. And you put that right here. The same thing, whether you have a password type link, Vimeo, YouTube, you put that here. And you also can describe what the sample is about as well. And if you want us to look at certain things or whatever, you put that in the description as well. This is key too. We want to know this really for our own internal tracking purposes. Have you received support from SDF in the past? And that could be, fiscal sponsorship, a production grant, a research and development grant, a North Carolina filmmaker grant, or you have not received funding or sponsorship from us at all. So check, whichever applied to you. And also, if you receive support from SDF, please specify projects and your involvement below. That's not up here. How did you learn about SDF filmmaker grants? How did you find out about us? With social media? Did you hear from a certain arts council organization in your community or city? Did someone tell you about it? What organizations in your community do you recognize as serving independent artists? Do you have a local arts council in your city or county or state that really champions independent artistry? or any other organization or entity that really supports artists, and especially documentary artists, list those. We would love to possibly partner with them for certain things. Demographic survey, this is optional, but we have a survey right here just for, stat purposes. You just put in your race, whatever you identify as, ethnicity. If other, list below. We also have gender as well. So whatever you identify as, we have it right here. And if it's not listed, or if you choose other, you can put it right here as well. Also, if you have a disability, definitely let us know about that too. And that's this section right here. And that's it. You hit submit, and it's good luck to you. So I'm gonna stop screen share and go ahead and start answering some questions. All right, I'm gonna go ahead top to bottom. For an anonymous person, does filmmaker experience include narrative and documentary projects for determining if the person is new, emerging, etc.? Not necessarily. Pretty much it kind of goes back to, hold on one second here. So pretty much it's like, all right, first time is like, you haven't made a film at all, period. You haven't really had any significant recognition. You never really played at festivals. You haven't won any awards. Emerging is pretty much like a 2 to 3 projects. I'm pretty much considered emerging. I've done a couple of projects, had some success, some awards, some recognition. So it could be a combination. If you've done some narrative stuff, you might have just done a little bit of documentary. But if you've done, 2 to 3 narrative projects, you're pretty much in that emerging type of thing. If you've done 5 or more projects, you're an experienced maker. Let's see here. Applicants need to be individuals and non-profit. Yes. Yes. Oh, hold on. For this person, where it has applicants need to be individuals and not a nonprofit, I think nonprofits still can apply. Email me, let me check on that for sure. I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but just send me an email on that, and so I can actually get that answer back to you after this session. Iris, can you please repeat what you said about projects should not be in production? Well, projects have to be in production for this grant. Projects that are in production, they can apply. Projects that are in research and development, post-production, distribution, engagement, they can't apply. So if you're in production right now, if you're like in that pre-production stage where you're doing some light filming, or if you're heavily involved in filming, apply to this grant. You see, Berenice Brino, I see that there are categories. What if the project is an experimental docu-series? Yes, that still qualifies. So definitely apply. Let me see. Iris, she has another question. Can you speak more about experimental filming? Well, experimental, it's hard to explain. I can give you a couple of examples. If you've seen the documentary Hale County, it's pretty much, it's like your non-traditional way of doing documentary. How you use the sound, you're using different type of experimental elements. Let me see here. Just different types of technique and presentation. And also email me at Chris@Southern Documentary Fund. I can definitely send you a couple of great examples of experimental documentaries that are real great. Just Hale County this evening comes to mind as an experimental documentary, but I can send you a couple of them that are great. And a friend of mine is actually working on an experimental documentary now, and we go back and forth, about that. So I'll definitely send you a couple of those. Let's see. Hannah Myers, what size/scope of budgets are aligned with this production grant in SDF? Also, is there a percent raised to date benchmark that required for competitive apps? Well, the size really of the budget, it really should reflect if you can actually raise it or not. Like if you have a budget that's $100 million, that's probably not going to happen. And if it is, you probably wouldn't even need a grant. So, documentary budgets range. They range from like $10,000 to $1 million or more. So if you have a good strategy, if you already raised a nice bit of money for the project, and again, it depends on what we see where we're in that application. If we see that, okay, you've raised some money, you've got some good people involved with this. The budget is $500,000, but you already have a plan to show how you're going to raise the $500,000. Then it definitely makes you competitive. But if you have like a $1 million budget and you really haven't raised anything, you don't have a full plan or anything, nah, that's probably not going to work. So you really want to, really focus and hone in on your budget and really see if you can actually do this and raise that type of money. If not, you might just need to change up your documentary a little bit. It's happened to me. I've had certain projects that I've wanted to do, and the budget was just going to be too much. I knew I couldn't raise that amount. And so I said, you know what, let me do a different project. I know I can raise 50,000. I know I can raise 100,000. I've already got 20,000. Let me put it into this. And I only have to raise like maybe 50 to 80,000 more. So that's pretty much how you want to handle that. Let's see. I'm still filming and editing the project. Oh, my fault. Skip. My fault. How do you determine when a project is in production? For example, if I'm ready to move into production, but can't because of lack of funds, I think this grant might fit my needs. Will I still be eligible? Thank you. Yes, if you're in pre-production, that's pretty much sounds like you're in pre-production. You would be eligible. And also put that in your grant as well. Say, hey, we're in pre-production. And you want to put that in the grant impact part for sure. Saying, hey, we're in pre-production. If we had these funds, we can start production next week, and it will help us get production rolling. Let me see here. All right. I'm still filming and editing the project. Is it okay if we are still filming and editing the project to apply for the grant? Must have to still be editing when the grant is provided if we are lucky enough to get the grant. Well, people do this all the time, especially if you're a camera person and the editor, because people are always editing to try to craft the story. But if you're still filming, you're still in production, because people edit and film at the same time. That still doesn't mean you're in post-production because you're still filming. A lot of times people want to do the edit to really craft the story, to kind of plug in holes and see where they're going, see where the story's going. So if you're filming right now and going to be filming for a while, you can apply for the grant. Let me see. Dr. Gloria, can you recommend someone who can help me fill out my application? Dr. Gloria, email me. Chris at Southern Documentary Fund, and I can see if I can assist you with that if you need any help. Send me an email. We can schedule a time to go through it. Can you submit more than one application? It depends. If it's just for that specific project, it's one application. If you're trying to do multiple projects, you can, but only one can get selected if either one is selected. All right, can this grant fund post-production and distribution? Nope, this is just a production grant. This grant isn't to fund post-production or distribution. We're thinking about maybe next year doing something with post-production, but we'll see. But this year is strictly for production. Let's see here. Berenice Brino, main differences between accountability versus community care. And this is the thing, those sections are optional also, but some of those sections do kind of overlap and kind of are saying the same thing. Accountability with that section really is just like, how are you going to be accountable with this project? How are you going to have the subjects involved? A lot of times with documentary makers, we don't include the subjects or participants at all in the project. We don't ask them for feedback or anything. So that's the part you really want to think about when you're doing your films now is, are you going to be open and transparent with the subjects? About in regards to financing, all of that. You want to be open. And that's really what that accountability part is about. Letting them share feedback of certain things that you shot, kind of letting them check out, some of the footage and just give their feedback and their thoughts on certain things. That's really what, accountability, that accountability section is, from the whole process. Community care, say if you're dealing with someone, for example, say if you were doing a documentary about protesters and sometimes some of that footage could be used against them, how are you going to deal with that? What are some things you're going to have in place to make sure they're safe, they're protected, their lives aren't in danger as well? Because, some of these subjects are really deep and very challenging. And so that's where those kind of differ somewhat. See, Ann Ward. Okay. See, I just answered that one on the previous question. Let me see here. Hannah Myers, right? Yeah, I just answered those. And again, some of these are kind of going to be kind of overlapping, but power and positionality, community care and safety, those are optional for this application. So you do not have to fill it out, but I know in other grant applications, they probably will require it. But again, I just kind of explained those right there. Heidi Lawson, the story is centered on a subject. How do you determine whether an impact campaign is needed? Okay, it really depends on the subject. Like, for example, the documentary I'm doing on Grandmaster Vicar Moore, it's a martial arts documentary. It's more of a biographical type thing, but we're still going to do an impact campaign because we want to actually get more African-American youth involved in karate, in martial arts. Even though the documentary is just on him and his history in martial arts, there's still elements of the film that we can use as impact. So we want to really show what martial arts can do for a community. It teaches discipline, self-confidence, self-control, all of that. And so we want to build an impact campaign around, martial arts schools and academies in inner cities to show the film and also sponsor karate tournaments, because these things cost. Karate tournaments cost for kids to go to them. You know, they have to pay for uniforms, they have to pay for travel. And so we want to do fundraising campaigns to help fund a lot of inner city youth who want to participate in tournaments or participate in martial arts in general, make sure they have the funding for that, and also bring these type of screenings to those communities. So really, it really all depends. It really all depends what your subject is about. Your subject could have something that could center around impact, you know, whatever type of career they do or anything. You know, I'm actually thinking about doing a documentary on my grandmother, who's a retired nurse, and we want to do possibly some impact stuff around nursing. You know, so there's all different ways that you can kind of create some impact with your project. But if you have any other questions, I would love to talk to you about it, and just to find more about it, about the subject, and maybe I can help you with an impact strategy. So just email me, chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org. Let's see here. Right, Ann Ward, do you need a contract for distribution to be funded? I have hopes for distribution, but they may not be realized. Oh, no, you don't have to have a contract for distribution to be funded. Majority of documentaries don't have a distributor, but that doesn't mean that you can't get the film out. My film, one of my first films, Wilmington on Fire, we did our own distribution and actually made a lot more money than films that have a distributor. So, but we had a plan. You know, we had a distribution plan, and distribution doesn't mean that you're going to the theaters or you got Netflix. You know, distribution is pretty much how you're going to distribute your film, you know, for the world to see. And so what we did, we did our own screenings. We did our own streaming, which you can get an aggregator, whether it's Indie Rights, Film Hub, and the aggregator can put you straight to Amazon Prime, Tubi, iTunes, just like a major distributor can. You know, so those are things to look at. You know, it's not required for you to already have a contract or have distribution locked down. You can put, you know, some distributors that you would hopefully you want to reach out to and hopefully get distribution from. But if it doesn't happen, what's your backup plan? You know, how are you going to still distribute it? You know, so that's really what you want to put for distribution. But yeah, if you don't have distribution already locked down, still apply. Majority of documentaries don't have distribution, traditional distribution. So that's nothing to be worried about. Let's see here.
Hey, Chris, really quick. Someone asked if you could repeat the name of, I think it was the aggregator you were speaking about.
Oh, yeah. It's two aggregators, Film Hub, and I'm gonna put those, if Dana can find the links for them. It's Film Hub is one, and Indie Rights. Film Hub and Indie Rights are the two that I use. That are good reputations and everything. They're actually, Film Hub is actually is about to get my film on Tubi in about a month. But yeah, they're great. And Indie Rights as well is a good one. See here, sample, will the project be rejected if we do not have a scene rough cut of this project? I don't understand how we can get funding for production if you need to include rough scenes. The thing is, you know, if you're in production, you at least have a scene, you know, send us something, you know. If you're in production, meaning that you've been filming, you know, you can chop up a good scene for us. We have to see, you know, it doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't have to be color graded. You know, the sound doesn't have to be all correct, but we have to see something. You know, because if you're in production, you've filmed already. You've been filming. So, you know, whether you have an interview, sample, something, you know, send us something. When does funding become available? Well, you know, folks who get it, funding would actually be available for folks around October. You know, if folks receive the grant. Folks are one of the 5. Let me see here, anonymous, right? Is it a disadvantage for you if you are the director, cinematographer, editor, or one-man crew? No, that's not a disadvantage at all. One, you definitely want to put that in your application and also put why you're a one-man crew. But again, documentary film is tough. It costs a lot of money, and it's a lot of times it's usually a 1, 2, 3-man type of crew. A lot of times, I know several filmmakers who have been at Full Frame, Sundance. They did it all. They were director, the DP, and editor. So yeah, you have projects like that. So that's not a disadvantage at all. If you have experience, definitely put some of those projects down that you were the one-man show. And so if you have good stuff, it doesn't matter. Let's see here. This is a collaborative project. Which person's ethnicity do we list? There isn't a place to explain. Let me see here. You pretty much, Riley, if this is a collaborative project, you want to put that on your key personnel. And you can talk about how this is a collaborative project, and you can kind of list that person's ethnicity, whether they're a producer or a DP or editor or a consultant. You can kind of put that in there as well. And you can also put it in, connection and access also. See, Sonia Hooks. And we still got a lot of questions. Let's see, Sonia Hooks. I have over 7 years working in film industry, below the line, but would be first-time doc filmmaker. Let's see here. You would really fall under, let me see. You would, if this is your first time being a director, then you will be a first timer. Even if you worked in the film industry, but if this is your first time being the head of a film, you would be a first timer. But again, being a first time filmmaker, emerging experience, none of that counts against you, because we keep it fair and balanced with first time filmmakers, emerging, and experienced. So even if you are first time, or even if you are experienced, it's not going to go against you either way. Marta Collier, regarding fundraising strategy, how can we learn more about pursuing future fiscal sponsorship through SDF? Oh, great that you asked. Yeah, we actually, if Dana can probably put a link in there in the chat box. If you have a project and you're interested in fiscal sponsorship through us, you can definitely apply. Before you apply, you can reach out to me to talk about your project, just to see if it's a good fit. And also I can explain what all we offer as well. And we have an actual recording about our fiscal sponsorship program, and I can probably have Dana put that in the chat. But Marta, definitely email me whenever you're ready. If you're interested in learning more about our sponsorship, definitely email me at chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org. Right. See, my film was in a film festival, but feedback told us to refilm a few scenes. Would we be able to submit for the grant? No, I don't think you'll be able, because pretty much your film is done and you're just kind of going back to film some scenes. You're just kind of doing pickup shoots. So your film really wouldn't be eligible for this grant. Let me see here. Oprah Payne. What is your Instagram information and where can you locate films you produce? And do you know of any grants for first-time producers and makers? Yeah, I'll put my IG in the chat real quick. But yeah, you can check me out on IG, Speller Street Films. You can check at Speller Street Films, or you can check out at Speller Street Chris at Speller Street Chris. We also email me, Oprah Payne, about grants and stuff. I actually have like a little database. I might can send you a few, because some of the grants that I know about for first time makers, sometimes they're state-based as well. So I would just need a little bit more information from you, you know. So just email me about that and I'll see if I can help you out. Kelsey Skolt. In regards to the in production question, if you have a cohesive, solid pre-production plan, but have not shot anything at all, is that ineligible? I would say, I would probably have to talk to you a little bit more about that. Email me, Kelsey, and so we can schedule a time to talk. Email me at chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org so we can talk a little bit more about that, because I'm running out of time and I might need to ask you a few more questions. All right, we got T. Edwards. Our sizzle is not 5 minutes long. We would have to prepare a new sample. Yeah, you kind of want to get it to 5 minutes. And the thing is, you can do a combination. I know when I applied to Firelight, I'm a recent Firelight Media Doc Lab participant, and I combined 3 scenes. You know what I'm saying? I had my trailer, my sizzle reel first, and then I made another scene to go along with it. So it doesn't have to be pretty. You know what I'm saying? You can have your sizzle reel, and then you can just add a scene to it to make it 5 minutes. Say if your sizzle reel is like 2 minutes, and then you just cut like a small scene to attach to that. And that's really all you would need to do. Cherie Johnson. Can more than one person on the same project submit for the same film? No, just one person. One person needs to submit for that film. One person just needs to submit. Let's see here, a couple more questions. See here, Justin, I'd use these funds to help finalize secure access to spaces and folks needed for the film, so it'll be used for travel. They are interested but not fully secured. This would be disqualifying. Justin Feltman, email me. I just need to ask you a few more things with that. You know, we're running out of time and everything, but email me, and so we can schedule a time to talk this week. Justin Feltman, if you're still out there, email me, chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org. Jasmine Leeward, I'm directing a feature-length film, and I am living in Virginia, as well as my producer, but the story is based in Philly. Would we be eligible for this grant? Yes, you're living in Virginia, you know, so you're a Southern maker. So yeah, you can definitely apply. Maggie Carroll, the film I'm working on is about my grandmother. I love that you're working on one about your grandma, Chris. And she's pretty far along dementia. The film focuses on that, certain type of dementia. She's no longer in a mental space where she can sign a consent form for the film. How would SDF feel about something like that? I'm trying my best to share a story. Maggie, email me about that. Because it depends on who's a caregiver now. You know, who is really, you know, in control of her estate and her affairs. I know with my documentary about Grandmaster Vic Moore, one of his students that we document as well that he's been working with is mentally challenged. And so he couldn't sign the form, but his mom is his primary caregiver. So she has the right to sign the release form. And so we had to do that. So email me and I can kind of talk to you more about that and how to best handle that. Just email me at chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org. Let me see. Language requirements. If some of your subjects speak Spanish in interview, that's totally fine. You know, there are a lot of documentaries that are like that. But you want to make sure you have your captions. and stuff like that, and translations, when when your final project comes out. But yeah, if your subject speaks Spanish, that's totally fine. Hannah, do we need a fiscal sponsor to receive the funds? No, you not. No, you do not. You do not need a fiscal sponsor to apply for this grant or to receive funds for this grant. So our grant doesn't require a fiscal sponsor at all. But if you want a fiscal sponsor, definitely reach out to us and email me if you want to talk about fiscal sponsorship for a project, if you're interested. But for this grant, a fiscal sponsor is not required. Bernice, what type of samples should first-time filmmakers include? Who has recently received another grant for the project I would propose? Samples, you really want to, if you're a first-timer and you have a work sample for this, it really depends. You want to show a sample that showcases the story. If you're doing it on a certain subject, show that certain subject and their element to kind of give us an overview sense of what the film is going to be about without giving too much away. And again, the sample should at least be 5 minutes. And then, like I said, it could just be a scene. I know a scene that I used for a grant recently about Grandmaster Vic Moore. We did a scene of him making his phone calls, making daily phone calls, calling karate students, for them to pay their dues on time. Him also going through a training session with one of his students as well. So you really just want to have a good scene, at least, of what your film is going to be about. All right, Maggie, you have a good day, and definitely email me that question, and I can set up a time to talk to you about it on the phone this week. All right, last question for the day. And again, if anybody has any other questions after this question, email me and I'll definitely hop on the phone with you this week. A lot of times you can't really answer, the whole thing in just a message or an email. So I like to talk to people over the phone. And so I can really see what's going on and see how we can help and see if you really qualify or not. Last question from Kerry. What if you have a 20-minute reel for a multi-episodic doc? Does it need to be edited down to 10 minutes? If you have a 20-minute reel, it doesn't have to be edited down to 10 minutes. You can just select at least 5 to 10 minutes that you want us to see. For example, you have a 20-minute reel. You say, hey, Chris, I want you to just see from the 5-minute mark to the 10-minute mark. So give us a marking point on your application. And we kind of have that descriptor below that section saying that, hey, if you want us to see a certain section of it, let us know. So give us some time points, from that 5 to 10 minute period that you want us to see in that 20-minute reel. So that's all you have to do is just say, hey, I want you to focus on, 4-minute, the 4-minute and 30-second mark to the 12-minute and 20-second mark. Cool. All right. Again, thanks everyone for attending our info session today. Again, if you have any other questions, if I didn't answer your question, and also if anyone else who I said email me so we can go through it, email me at chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org, chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org, so we can schedule a call this week, and so we can help you with that. Again, I know this is, grants are tough. Again, like I said, I'm in the struggle with you guys. I'm a documentary filmmaker as well, and I'm actually doing some myself right this week, over the next couple of weeks. So the thing is that you just got to stay focused with it. Take your time. That's all you have to do. Stay focused, take your time. Also use that resource section on our page. It's definitely going to help you out a lot. So go to those reference documents that's on the filmmaking grant page on our site. Check out the budget, check out the checklist, definitely look at the recorded budgeting workshop, and also check out the sample application as well. We were blessed to have a filmmaker that won one of our grants last year to let us use one of their application, for sample. So definitely check out that sample application so you can see, how they worded their stuff, how they describe, their stuff in certain sections. That's how I've gotten better with grant writing, is looking at award winning grants. That's how you get better. So definitely take advantage of these reference documents. A lot of these grant organizations don't even give you that. We're trying to, really help you guys make the best grant application you can possible. Again, it's very competitive, so good luck. And again, email me your questions, chris@southerndocumentaryfund.org, and so we can help you get through this grant writing process as smooth as possible. But again, thank you everyone for attending our info session today. Definitely, if you still have questions, even after you talk to me, join us Tuesday, July 12th at 4 p.m. We'll be doing our last grant info session, which we'll be doing this again. So if you have any other questions, even after we talk, again, with someone, a few people that's going to email me. And if you have questions, definitely attend July 12th at 4 p.m. as well. So again, you guys enjoy your afternoon. My name is Christopher Everett with the Southern Documentary Fund, and this is our first info session for the 2022 SDF production grant.